Paul Moore with the Energy Conservatory, and welcome to our webinar titled Software and Apps. We're continually updating our software and creating new apps, and we're going to give a general overview of what's available today, and review the features and help you figure out which of these will work best for you. If you're looking for BPI continuing education units, this webinar is available for one. And we'll upload the information we have to BPI, and they'll be awarded after the completion of the webinar in whatever time it typically takes BPI to update their site. You'll see that show up there. And we do not provide a completion certificate, but you will get those BPI credits. If you didn't provide us with your BPI number when you registered, you can email those to us along with your full name and BPI number. In order to receive those credits, you do need to be logged in under the email address that you used when you registered. So if you're watching this with somebody else right now, they will receive credit and you won't. So make sure you're logged into the webinar using the same email address that you registered with. Our agenda today, we're gonna first kind of cover the basics of advantages to using software and apps, and then we'll go over choosing between the options. So we'll kind of lay out the options and help guide you through what would be best for you. And we'll do a demonstration showing what software looks like, what data entry fields there are, and what the reports look like. And then we'll briefly talk about multi-band, bigger building testing or multifamily testing. We're not going to go into any details at all, but we'll talk a little bit about what software is available for that. And then the TEC Gauge app for a phone, either Apple or Android, and what that looks like and what that can do. And then we'll also briefly talk about a data logging option if you want to data log pressures where you would leave a gauge at a house for an extended period of time and graph pressures, see what's going on in the house, and then view them later on graph. We have that option too. So the advantages to using software and apps. It allows you to adhere to recognized test standards. So there are a number of test standards out there, and we'll talk about that. And if you're required to follow those, then you're able to do that. And it corrects the flow for density. For some of them will correct this for temperature difference between inside and outside, and some also for altitude, and we'll talk about that. Automated testing gathers a lot of data quickly, and so you can increase your productivity that way, where you're writing down a bunch of numbers and then entering into a computer if you don't want. And there are certainly advantages to automated testing. And the software will, all of that data that you gather in the field, whether it's numbers or information about the building, calculate results based on all of that data you enter in. So it might be data about the heating system and air conditioning or the ventilation system, and then it'll do calculations based on what's in the house and what the house needs, depending on which software you choose. And it'll certainly increase the accuracy of your tests, especially on windy days, and you'll know once you're done with the test how accurate it is. And then you can generate from the software or the app a professional looking report. You have a choice between manually entering the data or automated testing. It can give you the Depending on which software you choose, it can give you the costs associated with the air leakage of the home. If that's something that's important to you, it can calculate mechanical ventilation needs. If you want to give your homeowner that information, with the apps, they can geotag your location and populate the address field. So that's a time-saving feature. You can use third-party apps to sign your report and email it from the field. So that's handy if you're doing code compliance testing and the building official wants a report that is signed. You can email directly to them or send it up to the cloud and they can retrieve it from there. So pretty slick. So how to choose between which software or which app to use. So we'll go over some of the things that the different apps can do, and then based on that information and looking at the reports they can generate, will help you decide which one is the best for you. And you maybe you do code compliance testing, maybe you do pre and post blower testing before and after work is done on a house, and you have different needs. You can use different software and apps depending on what it is you want to gather and present. You can do either manual data entry or automated testing, depending on what you prefer, which test standard you're going to be following will help you determine which app to choose, or software to choose, because different software and different apps use different test standards. How much information do you want in the report? Once you gather that data with the PC software, you can choose between a really straightforward customer report or a detailed report. If this customer wants additional information or there's additional information you want to present to them, you can do a more detailed report. You can't customize it yourself and include only information you want to, but we have two different formats that allow you to present the information in different ways. If you choose to enter the data manually, you don't need a computer or device in the field. You can write the data down and then enter it into the computer later at your convenience. The PC software we have for that is for duct leakage test, it's called TEC Blast. For blower door test, you can choose between TEC-Tite or TEC-Tite Express. And the blower door software does include temperature, and depending on which test standard you choose, it could include the elevation correction. If you're up in the mountains, it is important to make that correction also. For iOS or Android phone or tablet, if you're doing a blower door test, we have a manual data entry that follows the ResNet test standard, the Chapter 11 standard that or Chapter 8 standard, Chapter 8 standard for ResNet, and you can enter the data that's required from them. Or if you're doing energy ratings or even code compliance work, you can follow that standard. And the report also includes a geotag and a photo, so that's nice. You'll know it's manual data entry, but it will gather the geotag and a photo that you take and include that on a report. So this is the first app that we came out with years ago, when we came out with the Wi-Fi link for the DG700 first, and that app is still available. If you choose automated blower door testing, you can show that you're compliant with the test standard and demonstrate the accuracy. So after you complete the test, you can look at the data and make sure it's accurate. And on really windy days, you may choose to add additional data to that file to make it more accurate. So those are some options that you have for windy days. It can increase your productivity because you can start the test, and once it gets started and it's gathering the test data after the baseline, then it just steps through the report and will automatically do that. On really windy days, you may need to babysit it a little more, but generally speaking, on a typical day, you can start doing other things while it's gathering the data. And from the report, you can generate from that data that you gather, you can choose between a couple of reporting options. It certainly will eliminate any data entry errors when you're taking down the blower information, especially on a multi-point test. It gathers all that data and does all the calculations, and you don't have to enter a bunch of data into the software. So it's nice from a production standpoint to have the option of doing an automated test. So when you do an automated test, the computer or app takes control of the gauge and runs the test. So if you try to enter things into that gauge after the computer is connected to it, it'll just beep. The computer is now controlling it, and you set up which fan you're using and which ring you're using in the software and not at the gauge. The PC software you would use for a blower test are the same, TEC Type and TEC Type Express. So you have the option with that software of either manually entering the data or doing an automated test. TEClog 3 is for multi-fan testing, where you can control multiple fans from the computer, and that's more of a semi-auto test where it's graphing the test, so you can see a visual graph of all of the pressures and flows, and you can choose which areas you want to gather the data in at each data point, and then click up or down on the cruise from there and follow the test standards. So it's kind of a semi-auto test. For Apple phones or iPad, we've got our newest app is called TEC Auto Test, and you can do both a blower door test and a duct leakage test using that app. So this is our first automated duct leakage test for total duct leakage. Some of the features of the Auto Test app is first you enter all the information in your general settings. So these are things that typically stay the same from house to house, including your fan and gauge serial numbers. It'll automatically pull in there's a chip on the gauge, and it'll pull in the calibration date, last calibration date of the gauge. And it'll have a listing of typical tests that you do and which standards they follow, whether blower door or duct leakage, and you can configure those to the ones you typically do. You may want to do a single point test for some of your tests or a multi-point test for others, and you can configure it and choose between them. We have about, I think, 8 or 10 typical configuration set up, and if you're never going to use those, you can just delete those out of the list and just customize the ones that you use and call them what you're comfortable calling them. And then your contact information will be entered in there, and you won't have to enter that again. Once it's entered in, you can certainly change it over time, but all the general settings or information that typically stays the same. And what credentials you have, whether they're EPI certifications or resident energy rating certifications or duct and envelope testing or whatever you happen to have for credentials, you can add those in there, and those will be included on the report. So this is helpful information and things you like to see, homeowners or builders would like to see on the report. It has a nice geotag feature, so if you have internet connection either through a hotspot on your phone or maybe your iPad has a internet connection option, You will grab that geotag, find where you are, and you can populate the building address information. You can choose to put that address right into the field where it'll show up on the report. Sometimes with new neighborhoods, it won't show up exactly right, and you may need to edit it, but it allows you to do that also. One really nice advantage of it is if you have a certain model house type and you're doing a test on something very similar to that or one that's the same size, you can copy that house, and it won't bring in the data from that house, but it'll bring in everything else, and which tests you typically do on it, and who the builder is, and all that information. It'll pull all that information in, and then you can edit it. So you can do the geotag on the house, and it'll pull in the address, which will be different. If you need to edit the volume or the square footage, you can do that. So it makes it really easy. So you can be really productive on moving from one house to the next, or if you're doing a pre-test and a post-test, you can just make a copy of that, rename it, and away you go. You can do, for a blower arc test, you can either do just a single point or a multi-point. And for duct leakage testing, it's just total duct leakage, just a single point at 25. Additional features, like I mentioned, especially it's nice if you're doing a retest or testing a similar type home. You can just make a copy of it and modify it for that address and that volume, and the tests that you're going to do are already in there, and it makes it easy to start a test really quickly. The PDF report includes all your contact information, your credentials, the building information, the customer information. You can choose to have, if you're doing a code compliance test, it'll show what that target is. So if your target is 3 air changes per hour, it'll show that, and it'll show what your results are. You're at 3.2 or you're at 2.5, and whether it passed or failed. So that's front and center in the report. It's in bold. That's the information the building official is interested in. They can see that information without having to search through the report right away. If you're not doing a test for code compliance, then you don't want that information in the report on what a target number is and where yours comes in. If you don't want that in, you can choose a different report, and that won't, that information won't show up on the report. And then, as I mentioned, the geotag, location, and timestamp come in on that report. So it shows what day you were there and where you were. So depending on what test standard you may want to follow, will help guide you on which software to choose. So these are the test standards that different apps or software might include. The CGSB, the Canadian General Standards Board test, is one that's always been in our TEC software that goes back. That standard came out in 1985, so it's been in TEC since TEC's origin, and that's an 8-point multi-point test, and does a correction for temperature differences between indoors and outdoors, so it has the intervals in. We added the ResNet Chapter 8 test standard when that came out, and that includes both their single point, repeated single point, and multi-point tests. And you can do those for HERS ratings or code compliance, and they do make the adjustment for both temperature and elevation. ASTM E779, this is the most referred to standard. If you do the full standard, it's multi-point both pressurization and depressurization. The 2015 IECC refers to that. In the Auto Test Act, we only included a depressurization test because we figured that's what the majority of people are going to be doing, is just a depressurization test. The EN 13829 is a German passive house standard, so there are some houses that are being tested to the German passive house standard and not the US standard. So that's available, and that's also available for our German customers. And then the iOS is a European standard, and not that you would be using that, but that is in there and that is available. Next, we'll do a demonstration of our PC-based software, TEC-Blast, TEC-Tite, and TEC-Tite Express. So we'll show you what data entry is required and show you what those reports look like. And then we'll do some tests on iOS and Android, or we'll use iOS for this test, but we'll show you the TEC resin, the manual data entry option. And then currently we only have it available on iPhones and iPads, the TEC auto test, and we'll do a demonstration of that and show you what those reports look like. Okay, let's start with the PC-based software. So I'll close out of this. And we'll open up TEC-Blast. So TEC-Blast is one of our oldest softwares. We're not making any additional changes from that because we're moving away from this to an automated test software. So this is a file that's been created in TEC-Blast, so you can see the customer information has been added. If you go up to options, you can add business information to your report also. And if you go up to the help menu, it'll give you guidance on the page you're on. So you've got our customer information, our building area, our air handler flow. This is the comments page. You can add as many pages of comments, as many characters as you want. You can't add photos, but you can add lots of extra verbiage that you want included in a report. We've got our test mode is pressurized, test pressure 25. We're doing a total leakage test, and we can edit duct system parameters if you want additional information included in your report. You can go up to the help menu to get some guidance on that. We did just a single point test, and here's our data table. So this is where we enter the information. If you have it in the pressure flow at 50 mode, it has you enter pre-test and post-test baseline numbers in there, but most test standards, virtually all test standards, don't require you to do a baseline. There may be exceptions, so take a close look at your standards. But typically you'll enter 0 in for the baselines, and if you're doing pressure flow at 50 or pressure flow at 25, you'll just enter 25 under duct pressure. Tell it which ring and enter the flow, and that is it. We can look at the data on this page, and then if we go up to File, we can take a look. There's two options in reports. We'll look at the customer report first. And zoom in on that, and basically shows you your information, the customer's information, the results of the test, and then based on the, it'll calculate the efficiency of the duct system based on the data you entered in the test leakage results, and then it'll calculate what the actual SEER would be of the furnace, heat pump, or air conditioner based on your duct leakage information. So that is the customer report, and if you want more detailed information, And you probably want to use this if you're doing a multi-point test, because then it will show, you know, more data based on a multi-point test. But usually you'll just use the one-page customer report. Okay, so that's TEC Blast. And next we will look at TEC Tight. And I'm not going to show you all these different ones, but this just gives you an idea of what different tests you could do. You could do manual data entry for any of these, or an automated test. I just did one with the manual data entry, and then that'll have the data entry box, or the other, if you choose automated test, it won't have that manual entry box. And CGSB is just a depressurization test, but I'll open one that shows a multi-point test. Well, let's do CGSB with first, because this is the one I think most people will be using, either the CGSB option or the option for resonant multi-point tests are going to be the two most common. So we'll show a multi-point test. So customer information, and if you wanted to calculate the energy costs related to air leakage, then you'll select a climate location and it'll populate all of these fields. You'll enter information about your heating system and costs, cooling system and costs in here. And you can also have it do ventilation calculations based on the tightness of the house. You can choose new or existing. If you choose existing, it's going to have you enter information about the bathroom ventilation, whether there's an operable window, and same with the kitchen. Again, this is comments. You can add as much data in here as you want. And then we chose auto and the CGSB standard, and there's our options: 1 point, multi-point, repeated single point test for resonant. And then we can look at our graph, all of those plots pointed, and we just did a depressurization test. And then the results, the results of that information, and then we'll look at a customer report. Page 1, page 2 is blank, so it's just a simple one-page report. We'll zoom in on that. And shows the leakage in square inches and in CFM 50, the natural annual leakage and the estimated cost of air leakage, and the ventilation system, how much ventilation is needed for that. And then we'll look at the detailed report. Okay, so there's page 1. It's got a little bit of additional information on mechanical. It breaks out heating and cooling costs, and a little more information about the infiltration. Page 2 has information about the climate data and the heating and cooling information that you entered in there. And then all of the data results of that test. We'll have that information also. So that is our TEC Tight reports, and you can choose which standard you want to use between those three, and the reports will come out slightly different depending on which of those you choose. Okay, close that down, and then we'll look at TEC Tight Express. It's the last one, and we'll choose the E7. Well, let's choose the E13829 test. that with Tech. We'll open that with TEC Express. So we'll go to TEC Express software. Okay, so this looks similar to TEC. It does ask the uncertainty of building dimensions for this test standard we chose. This is the German German passive house standard, and we've got both pressurization and depressurization information. You can see they're both on the graph. One is a circle and one is a square, and they're overlying each other pretty closely there. And then all of our test data, pressurization, depressurization, and the average shows up there. We can take a look at our report. Test report, so it shows the test graph along with it, and this one, you know, it doesn't show the energy part of it, energy costs or the ventilation costs, but it gives you more detailed information about the test. You look at the next page, all the information you entered in to do the calculations, and then all of the test data. So that's all what that report looks like. So you may choose, you know, you have an option if you're doing the CGSB, you could choose, depending on which report you like better, you could choose either TEC Express or TEC, and they're both free downloads from our website. So you can download both of them if you want. Okay, so that's it for the TEC tests. Okay, next we'll go to our TEC Gauge app, and that's available on either Android or Apple. So I'm going to, on the iPad, I'm going to choose the screen mirroring, and we can see the iPad on our screen. And then we'll open the TEC Gauge app, and you can see we've already set our Wi-Fi settings to the gauge and made that connection. And it's showing connect here, so you can just choose connect. Now it shows DG1000, that light's flashing, and the serial number of that gauge. So now we're already set to CFM50 and Model 3 fan. Let's see, we need to change our ring to ring B. So all of these blue screens are, you know, you can touch and choose which one you want. I'm going to do a baseline now, so now it's measuring our baseline and counting off in seconds, and it's staying pretty stable. So I am going to enter that baseline, and you can see what it took away that reading from our baseline reading. And now I'm going to uncap the fan. And we'll set that to cruise 50 by moving that cruise toggle across, and it'll ramp up to 50. You can also see we've got create and list here, so that allows us to capture the data once we get up to 50 pascals. So we'll let that hunt a little bit. Then I'm going to hit the settings here, and you can see we can choose between the formats here, between text and XML. XML is if you if you have some software written that'll pull this data into a report, you can do that, but that requires some programming. We're just going to use the text format. Now we're going to capture that data, so we're going to hit create here. That'll capture that data, and I'm going to choose to email that. Choose mail. Enter someone's email address, and then I'm going to send it. Okay, we'll go back, and then we'll stop the fan. So now you can see that data that I've captured came directly from the gauge, and I was able to email it email that data, and it's just a really simple report that I've captured. This app is also handy to just for pressures if you want to have a gauge set up down in the room with the furnace and water heater and walk around the house and turn on fans or open or close doors, turn air handlers on. You can see all the pressure changes with each of those steps. So that's handy use for it. Other uses is insulators if they're up in an attic doing some air sealing and they want to check the effectiveness of their work. They can start the fan from up in the attic and check with smoke to make sure that what they're trying is actually working. And they can also monitor. They get started up every half hour and see how much reduction they've got. So so a lot of handy uses for this app. All right, so I'm going to disconnect from this app, and next we'll look at the TEC auto test app. Before we go to the TEC auto test, I think we'll go to the TEC or iTech ResNet app. So close out of this one. Go to TEC ResNet, which is the example one. So on this page, we're seeing entering indoor and outdoor temperature and site altitude and time averaging period for a ResNet test for an energy rating is using the Chapter 8 standard. Is 10 seconds, so time averaging in default will be 10 seconds. You can change the date there if you want. And let's look at some general information we'll have in here. We'll enter the customer information, the customer name, address, city, etc. And then the volume and area and height of the building. And if the customer information is different than the building, so your customer might be a big builder, let's say, and the address will be something different, you'll enter that in here if the address is different than the building information. And then the reports and emailing test file part is there. So let's go back. So now we'll enter our baseline information in here. And the way this standard and this software is set up is rather than entering the baseline into the gauge, you're going to write down 5 10-second baseline averages. So you'll set your gauge to 10-second average, and you'll write down 5 numbers and make sure and add the sign, whether it's positive or negative, because it may be on either side of negative. So you can see in this example, we entered the data in already. And we had 3 negative numbers and 2 positive numbers, and the average of all of those was 0.9, and we'll use that for our baseline. And then it also displays the baseline range, and the range is the range between the highest and lowest. And in this case, positive 1.4, negative 3.2. So our range, if we look at the difference between those, is 4.6. So that's still considered a standard accuracy level. If that number was over 5, it would be a reduced accuracy, and we'd have to add 10% to our reading to make sure that we're not understating what the real reading is. It's not as accurate under those conditions, so we're being conservative and going with adding 10% to the reading. Another option is you can do longer baseline periods. You could go 30 seconds instead of 10, and that will tighten up that range typically, and you may get a standard level of accuracy. So you do that with the baseline, and then we'll also use that same time averaging period for the flow. So let's go back. Next we'll go down to test readings. And now we'll be in pressure flow mode. Remember, we're not entering baseline. We don't want flow at 50. We want the raw data. So we want to be in pressure flow mode. This is different than what you typically do, but we're in pressure flow mode. Enter the actual number reading on the gauge, in this case, -48 with ring B. And there's our pressures and flows. And then we can also include a geotag and a photo here, and then those would be included in the report. So then we've got two different options for a report. We can email a test file. And the test file will be a BLD file, which you can open in TEC, and then you can generate a report right from TEC. So that's if we want to email a test file. That's what that means. And then we can also go into reports, and it will we can display what the HTML file will look like. So this is what our report will look like. That's generated from this software. So that's our that's what that report looks like. Okay, so that's TEC ITEC, or rather ITEC ResNet. And next we'll look at our TEC auto test app. Okay, we'll close this out and launch TEC auto test. And that brings us to a project screen. And a project is a house. So when we come to this list on the project screen, it's listed as a house. And we can sort it by either date or by the name. So, you can kind of think of a naming mechanism that you want to use. I'm going to go to the settings page over here, and the settings are things that'll stay pretty much the same on every job. So here we've got a Model 3 fan, and I'm going to touch that, and we can add the serial number in here. And the same with the duct blaster fan. If we have more than one blower or duct blaster fan, we can add fans here too. And then these are our purpose of test, whether they're code compliance tests, the first two, envelope and duct. The next two are just that one's a California duct test, and then we've got just an envelope in a duct test. And in those, the report wouldn't have a target number. We wouldn't have a target pass-fail, so it wouldn't include those. So we've got some default ones in here. You can delete the ones you don't want by hitting edit, and then choose the ones you want to delete, and then put them in the trash here. So that's how you do that. And then down farther on the page, you'll put your name and your credentials, email address, and all the company information down there. So then we'll go back to the project screen. And so I'm going to make a duplicate of this project to start my next project. So I'm going to touch this over here, and that'll prompt me to give it a name. And I'm just going to call that number 2. Okay, and then I'm going to open that. And now I'm going to go to building and customer information here, that arrow, and I'm going to go to determine location. It'll find where I'm at, and then use current location. I'm going to accept that, use this address. Okay, and then I'm going to go back. And let's say this is my, your customer is actually a builder. Let's say his information is there, and this is the address of the house. If the customer has the same address as the house, then you can copy that information down into here and change the name. Okay, and then we'll go back. And from there, I am going to do a duct test first, so I'm going to click on that. That'll bring me to the screen, and I'm going to change this from, we'll leave it at depressurize, and I'm going to change the square footage here. Okay, and our target is 4, and then I am going to over on the lower left here, blue, it says run test. Do that. Up here it says connect. Connect to that gauge, and once that green bar goes up, now we're monitoring and we're ready to run the test. So I'm going to go down to the lower left here in blue, start test. Let me pick my ring here. Okay. So it's going to ramp us up to 25. It's sampling data. Okay, so that's it. So it says you want to view the report, yes. Okay, so you see our report. We can see our measured leakage is 2.7 CFM per 100 square feet. Our target was 4, so we pass. And then it's got all of our other information in here, along with a nice plot. So now I can go up to email that. Before I email it, so we could email it or send it to if we've got Dropbox or Google Drive on there, we can do that. I've downloaded this Adobe Acrobat software that will allow me to sign it. So I'm going to go to the second page. I'm going to click that signature thing, and then the pen over here to sign it. I'm done with that. So now I'm going to down here, I'm going to hit that signal to email it. I'm going to share that file, share the original document, and now I'm going to email it. Send. So pretty slick. So you saw how quick we did that. Now I'll do a blower dart test. So click on that arrow on the side there. We'll call it final envelope inspection 2. So instead of, that's not what I want to do. I'm going to show you how to delete that one. And then I'm just going to click on that one. And change that volume. We're going to do a depressurization multi-point test. Run test. Connect to the gauge. Okay, green light is on. So I can start the test. Enter indoor and outdoor temperature. The altitude, I've pulled in the altitude from our location. We're going to cover it. Cover the fan. Now it's going to do an auto zero. Now we can see on the status line here, the green line, it's measuring the baseline. It's taking our baseline data. Now it wants us to uncover the fan, and we want to uncover it before we hit continue because it's going to ramp up the fan as soon as we hit continue. Do ring D. And starting to sample the data. Now it's adjusting. You can watch that green target line, and it'll show you what it's adjusting. Now it's starting to sample the data. So it goes pretty quick, and you can actually you can walk away and start doing some other things while the test is running. Start gathering some other additional information. So you can see it's sampling the data for 48 now. So the CFM50 is showing over here, and the fan pressure, we usually don't think about the pressure at the flow sensor of the fan, but that's being displayed here. That's being converted to flow based on the device we're using, the duct blaster, and the ring configuration that we have. It's converting that fan pressure to flow. So we can kind of watch as, our next target is 36 down here. It's adjusting for 36, and we can kind of see getting close over there. Sampling the data now for 36. The other thing you can watch for is once that fan pressure gets down to to about 25 pascals, then it's going to want you to change rings. So we're still up pretty high. You know, we're taking a reading at 24 pascals, and we're still up at 50. So we'll probably be able to get by without a ring change. So this is the for this code, it's doing a ResNet test. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different data points. Or no, this is E779. So now it's finished taking the data, and we'll cap the fan.
I know we used one. That's actually
Continue now, it's taken the baseline reading. And we're done, and now it wants the temperature afterwards. And the only time this would really come into play is if you're pressurizing the house and it's cold outside. You could change the temperature in the house, but we're following the standard, and it's wanting us to take the data before and after. Would you like to view the report? Yes. Okay, and then we're going to sign that again. We're going to email it. There we go. So we've sent it. Okay, so I'm going to set up the mirroring, and then we'll go back to our PowerPoint. Okay, so that's the end of our webinar, and we'll take thanks for joining us today for our webinar, and we'll have time to review some questions, and feel free to type in additional questions on the side, and we'll cover those also. Feel free to give me a call or send me an email if any additional questions come up. And we like I mentioned before, we'd like feedback on what webinars you'd like to see in the future, things you would like to see added or simplified on our website. We're going to be making some changes there too. And we appreciate any feedback you can provide us. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got some time for questions here. The TEC auto test is available on Android now, so that's been that's available on either Apple or Android phones or tablets. And some other questions we've had is we've gotten a lot of calls lately about being compliant with the ResNet 380 standard, and the TEC auto test does have that option. that's really your best option, is to use TEC Auto Test, and that has the ResNet 380 standard option. And you do need Wi-Fi to connect to your phone or to a tablet. It is just an app. It's not available on a PC. So you would need either a DG1000 or a Wi-Fi link, which is a Wi-Fi add-on to your DG700 in order to use that app. And that app, again, is a free download. Another option we have is TEC Express, ASTM E779. If you choose that standard, that uses the same calculations for density corrections and for calculating the test results based on multi-point. The E779 has the same same method of doing those corrections. The difference with that automated software in TEC Express is it does 8 data points and 2 baselines, a baseline before and after, whereas ResNet 380 only requires 5 data points and 1 baseline, so it's a little bit different that way. It does have a manual data entry option also, so you can write down the results of your multi-point test, write down your baseline, and use the raw data, so just be in the pressure flow mode, write down the flow at the different pressures that are required, those 5 different data pressures, and you only need to take 1 baseline. So 1 baseline, 5 data points, and then it'll calculate your results based on that information. So you will be compliant with the ResNet 380 standard that way. Let's see, it looks like we do have a few, let's see what we've got for additional questions there. Can you have TC Auto Test app show the natural leakage rate and air change per hour in the report? It won't do the natural leakage rate, but it will show, if you enter the volume in there and choose a target volume, it will include the air changes per hour in the report. But right, got another one. Sending a test report to Dropbox. Do the data points go to Dropbox or just a generated report? That's a very good question. Just the PDF report. So Autotest only generates a PDF report. It doesn't have the raw data, doesn't go up there, or a test file, nothing like that. It just generates a PDF report. So if you think about that, if you lose your phone, you've lost all of your reports. So you want to send your reports up to Dropbox or email them to yourself, so you have a backup copy of all of those reports. So it looks like that's it. Like I mentioned before, we're always looking for feedback on what you'd like to see for apps, or what you'd like, for sure to see for apps or software or things like that. But also what you'd like to see for webinars in the future. We're always looking for that kind of feedback. So if you could email me or send us or call me and send us that information. A lot of what we do for webinars is based on feedback we get on what people would like to see. So we appreciate any of that kind of feedback. Let's see if we've got any more questions here before we wind up. Autotest cannot export to a BLD file. So you're limited. You're limited on the reporting options for that. if you like that tech type report better, then probably the better option is to either just enter the results manually. You could enter the results manually from the report into TechTite. Then you could use the TechTite report if you'd like to see that better, or you could certainly have a PC in the field and do the automated test right from the PC. Auto test for PC, having that as an option. At some point, we will want to be replacing. The TechTite and TechTite Express with something with a different software for PC, and that will be something very similar to TEC Auto Test. It probably will be that same format. We don't have a timeline for that yet. We're currently busy getting this available, so it's available in Europe, and we've got some other programming things that staff is tied up with now. But at some point, we will be having that option on a PC. All right, I think that covers the questions we've got so far, and we appreciate you taking the time to sit in on the webinar. And those credits for BPI should go over to your account within the next couple of weeks. Thanks.